For thousands of years, a powerful African kingdom thrived along the Nile. It built grand temples from stone, traded gold across empires, and ruled with queens and kings whose names still echo through time. And yet, most history books barely mention it. This is the story of Nubia, one of Africa's greatest forgotten civilizations. A kingdom not born in the shadow of Egypt, but one that stood with it, sometimes beside, sometimes against, and sometimes above. Long before the Great Pyramids pierced the skies of Giza, before the name Egypt meant power, people were already thriving in the lands to the south of the Nile Valley. They were farmers, herders, potters, and blacksmiths. They built small communities in the land we now call Nubia, a name that likely comes from the ancient word nub, meaning gold. This region was rich, not just in minerals, but in culture, innovation, and spirit. One of the earliest Nubian cultures we know of is Tarseti, meaning land of the bow. These were skilled archers, so fierce that even the Egyptians feared and hired them. Their presence dates back to around 3500 BCE, possibly even earlier than the first dynasties of Egypt. They had their own leadership, their own traditions, and even their own writing system. This wasn't a poor relative of Egypt. This was the beginning of a civilization in its own right. As Egypt rose in power, Nubia rose too. For centuries, they were trading partners and fierce rivals, swapping gold, ivory, ebony, incense, and ideas. But they also fought. Egypt, at times, tried to dominate Nubia. And Nubia, at times, struck back. Out of this complex relationship emerged a new African power, the Kingdom of Kush. By around 2500 BCE, the first major Nubian capital rose, Kerma. Its people built large mud-brick temples, royal tombs, and bustling trade routes. They were warriors, builders, and visionaries. Kerma thrived for hundreds of years until Egypt invaded in the New Kingdom period. But Kush was far from finished. Fast forward to around 750 BCE. Egypt was weakened by internal strife and foreign invasions. And while Egypt faltered, Nubia prepared to rise again, this time from the city of Napata. King Piya, a deeply spiritual leader of Nubia, believed he was chosen to restore Ma'at, the sacred balance of order and truth. But Piya didn't invade Egypt as a mere conqueror. He marched north to unite the Nile Valley under shared tradition. And he succeeded. He and his descendants became pharaohs of Egypt, not as outsiders, but as restorers. This became known as Egypt's 25th dynasty, or the Kushite dynasty. For nearly a century, Nubian kings ruled from Thebes to Napata. They restored temples, revived ancient rituals, built massive stone monuments, and stood as defenders of Egyptian culture. Names like Shabaka, Taharqa, and Tantamani became known across empires. Taharqa, in particular, was a giant, literally and figuratively. He fought off Assyrian invasions, commissioned temples, and is even mentioned in the Bible. But when Assyria struck back with brutal force, the Kushite pharaohs retreated south. Still, their legacy was forever etched in stone. Kush wasn't done yet. As the Napatan era waned, a new capital emerged farther south, Meroë. Meroë was different. It was wealthier, more independent, and boldly African in style and rule. Here, Kush entered a golden age. They built over 200 pyramids, many still standing today. They controlled gold mines, iron production, and vast trade routes that reached deep into Central Africa and as far as the Mediterranean. And something extraordinary happened here. Women led. The Kandakes, or Queen Mothers, were powerful monarchs, sometimes ruling alone, sometimes alongside kings, sometimes above them. One of the most legendary was Queen Amanirenas. When Rome conquered Egypt, Amanirenas led her army against the Romans, and won key battles. She even negotiated peace on her own terms, refusing to bow to an emperor. These queens weren't symbolic. They were sovereigns. But even great kingdoms must adapt, or fall. By the 3rd century CE, trade routes had changed. New empires, like Aksum in modern-day Ethiopia, were rising. The iron industry declined. And Meroë, once the crown of Kush, began to fade. By around 350 CE, Meroë fell. Its pyramids were swallowed by sand. Its script, known as Meroitic, faded from memory. And when European explorers arrived centuries later, they looted the tombs, dismissing Nubia as a mere offshoot of Egypt. But they were wrong. Nubia was not a shadow. It was a star. Today, the legacy of Nubia lives in more than just ruins. It lives in the strength of African queens. In the pride of dark-skinned royalty once erased from scrolls. In the gold that flowed through African soil long before colonial hands touched it. Nubia teaches us that Africa was never waiting to be discovered. It was building, writing, thriving, and ruling. Its queens led armies. Its kings ruled 2 lands. Its people shaped history with iron, stone, and gold. And now, after centuries of silence, we're listening again. Great civilizations don't always vanish. Sometimes, they whisper through stone. Until someone listens. Let us listen to Nubia. Let us remember. Let us reclaim what was never lost, only buried. Because when we tell Nubia's story, we tell Africa's truth.